All right, everybody, welcome back to the Cain Stevens Super Show. I am the host with the most, once again, Cain Stevens, and I have for you another super guest. This guy is a master in self defense. He's an author. He does books on espionage, self defense, and all that. I'm hoping to get weird with him, to be honest with you, and just talk to him about anything weird that he wants to talk about. So, with that being said, let's give a little round of applause for Pj Agness, everybody. All right, PJ, how are you, man?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Where you living these days, man? Do you mind saying? If you don't want to say, if you're in like a remote location, it's cool too.
No, it's a suburb outside of Minneapolis.
Perfect. What's the weather like up there? I like to ask people that, a little icebreaker.
It's cold. I mean,
It's what you imagine it would be in in Minnesota right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would never. No offense to you, man, but I'm just not. I live in Nebraska, and it gets cold here, but it doesn't get as cold as how you guys have it up there. So I couldn't cut it, but you obviously can. So let's dig into all this self defense and stuff. How did you begin to start doing like learning? Tell me like how you got into self defense. Did you get into like taekwondo, karate, all that stuff? Like how did you begin?
Well, when I graduated high school, I was really overweight, really obese, and depressed, and was trying to find something that was just kind of be a fun way to get in shape. And my cousin was taking a southern praying mantis self-defense class.
Okay.
And so southern praying mantis kung fu, and he had been going to classes for a while, and I'm just like, oh, what's that all about? I always wanted to do martial arts kind of growing up in the late 80s, early 90s. It's Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers, and martial arts was a really big thing, and I had always wanted to do it and never got a chance to as a kid.
Right.
So I kind of thought, you know, and I had always I grew up getting bullied a lot. I had a brain tumor when I was 6, and so I had to learn how to walk again, learn how to hold my head up right, and got bullied a lot. And I always wanted to protect myself, and then I always wanted to just be kind of a good guy, just protect other people. And so I went to this kung fu class with him and just really got into it and stayed for 5 years. And then I found a Russian martial arts teacher who was teaching this Russian martial art, which is actually kind of where some of the espionage came from, because it's a military martial art, and it was really kind of gathered from overseas in places like Japan by a Russian intelligence operative. And the KGB started learning it, and it was kind of reserved for them. It was actually reserved for what they call Stalin's Falcons, his bodyguards, for a while.
Right.
Then when the wall fell and the USSR ceased to exist, a lot of the people who were trained in this came over through Canada, actually, and thought they could make a buck kind of training people in what they knew. And so this guy came out of that. So I did that for a while. I did Muay Thai. I found an MMA gym and started doing that and just tried to do progressively tougher stuff. And then a woman from my church came to me and said, "Hey, could you teach the women's Bible study some self-defense stuff?" I'm like, I done martial arts, but I got to learn a little bit more about self-defense before I teach that. So I took some actually geared towards self-defense classes. I researched and read a lot of it and looked into FBI statistics on things and really became a student of that, and then ended up teaching that to them and ended up doing some security stuff for that church, teaching a lot of the youth and the women at the church. And then I kind of opened it up to everybody. And then through that, sort of learned the espionage skills and learned that the espionage skills are really applicable to self-defense. And so a lot of my books are geared towards like spycraft for self-defense.
So this is like so espionage for the listeners, so that we explain, this is like spy bond type stuff, right? I mean, what you would think spies would be doing, correct? When it comes
Yeah,
to defense.
what they actually do, and in reality, if you were a spy and everybody knew, called you Mr. Bond as soon as you walked in the casino, you
Yeah.
wouldn't be a very good spy.
Right. Right.
It's more, it's not quite as exciting as a James Bond movie. That's all kind of over. You don't want to get in car chases if you can help it.
Yeah.
I teach people, like, for instance, there's a thing called a surveillance detection route, which a a foreign intelligence officer, let's say, since we're Americans, let's say a case officer or an operations officer for the CIA goes over and he has to meet with some Russian source. Well, he needs to make sure that he protects his source. So he does what it's called a surveillance detection route and will turn in odd ways, will double back on himself if he's driving to meet his source, because he needs to make sure he's not under any kind of surveillance.
Yeah.
And so for instance, let's say you were driving down the street from your house and you felt like you were being followed, right? You might take a right turn. And if the other car behind you takes a right turn, that could happen. That's a possibility. You take another right turn. Okay, they took the second right turn. It looks very suspicious, but it could happen. So you take a third right turn. You're essentially moving in a circle.
Right.
If they take that third right turn, it's a pretty good chance that they're following you. And so you're not looking to lose them at that point. You're not looking to start a car chase. You're just looking to figure out if you're being followed or not. And if you're being followed, you probably aren't going to go home or go to work. You might get a cop's attention or something, but you want to expose that you're being followed. Another one is if you get on the highway, you get off the highway, and then you get immediately on the highway, then you get off the highway, and then you immediately get on the highway. and you're just, doing weird movements like that, you can really eliminate the fact that anyone should happen to be going the same way as you. They're following you. So these things that can apply to spies working under conditions where there might be surveillance. Well, there are what's called follow home crimes, where someone follows you home from the store and cases your house to come back and rob it later. And so those things are extremely applicable. The same skills that a CIA case officer might use, you might also find helpful to defend yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Well, like around the holidays, especially, you hear a lot of things. We have Christmas coming up. People are buying gifts. They're putting them under the tree. You hear on the news, like these houses got hit. Like, so what would a guy like you in this situation, because you're prepared, if somebody broke into your house, if for example, and they're doing something like this, what would you do? What would be your first plan of action? I mean, would you grab a gun? Would you, are your weapons, your hands and feet? I mean, what would you do in that case?
So I'm not going to specifically tell you what I would do,
Okay.
but I'm going to tell you what would be a very good, because I don't know your level of training.
Right.
You know, I know the issue as far as like guns, people are either left or right, and so I don't get into that at all.
Okay.
I just want to give you something that you could do, the 16-year-old girl could do, the 70-year-old grandmother could do, and you don't need any kind of special training.
Okay.
One of the best things that I recommend to keep near your bed, in case someone were to break in or something, is a fire extinguisher. So think of like a can of pepper spray or can of mace, right? You spray it in someone's eyes. You can do the same thing with a fire extinguisher. You have a bunch of freeze-dried chemicals. You spray in their face. It's going to blind them. It's going to disorient them. And then you have the metal canister that you can kind of use like a battering ram if you need to. You can hit them with it. If they have a knife, you can use it to block yourself. And then if you need to put out a fire, you have a fire extinguisher. So that's one of the most useful things that I can tell you to keep on yourself. Now, there's kind of a myth about break-in that someone will break in the middle of the night and try to steal your stuff. Most of the time, break-ins like that happen actually in the daytime,
Okay.
when it's known that people are going to be at work, that people aren't going to be in the house. Think of criminals as kind of lazy, also kind of that work smarter, not harder thing. They're not looking to break in when you're home and possibly have a confrontation with you.
Right. They don't want the fight either. You know what I mean? They just want to get in and get out, correct?
Right. They don't want to possibly be caught. They don't want to possibly be hurt. They don't want someone who's going to call the cops on them. They don't want to mess with someone's dog. So they're looking for the easiest place to get in and get out without getting caught. So the chances of someone actually breaking into your house at night is very rare. It certainly happens, but they're not necessarily looking to steal your TV or something. They could be it could be a much more dangerous situation where they're looking for, say, a woman in the house to victimize
Right.
or something. So if someone's breaking in when you're home, it's a really dangerous situation. Honestly, if someone was coming to take my TV or whatever, it's not that it's not that big a deal for me.
Right. Just take the TV, right?
Yeah, that's fine. I always say defend persons, not property.
Right.
So if I am walking down the street with, $40 in my wallet and someone puts a gun in my face and says, "Give me your wallet," take it, take the $40. Take the cards that I can cancel, whatever. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take it out of my pocket and I'm going to throw it as far as I can. Now you have a choice. Do you want to go after my wallet or do you want to go after me? I know people who will set up what's kind of called a toss wallet, where it's like a fake wallet, just for the purposes of tossing it away. And you know, depending on where you live, you might never use it, or you might actually be in danger of getting mugged somewhere.
It's not a bad idea, really. I mean, it never really occurred to me to have a toss wallet like here in Lincoln, Nebraska. But I mean, if I were in a bigger city or something, it's really not a terrible idea, honestly.
I've known a lot of people who've done that overseas and have had to use it.
Yeah, for sure. So you're in Minnesota.
Mhm.
Have you lived in Minnesota most of your life? Did you move
Yeah,
there later on? Yeah,
but all my entire life.
your entire life. So I'm intrigued by the espionage thing.
People who live in Minnesota are born here. No one chooses to live here.
Yeah,
You're born here.
yeah. I've talked to different guests before from Minnesota, and I always tell them I had the opportunity to go there and work as an electrician years ago for a lot of money, and I turned it down because, like, who the heck wants to do that in the middle of the winter time?
Mhm.
So there was no chance. I'd rather be poor.
Yeah, Minnesota winter's no joke.
Yeah, for sure. Are you a football fan at all? Do you watch any sports? You don't watch any sports?
I mean, MMA to a certain extent.
Yeah.
I've been, you know, involved in that, and so it's.
What's that like? I mean, I wouldn't know. I always assume that MMA is like chaos because it's like a street fight in a way. Because like I boxed, okay, when I was a kid, I fought a lot. I was also a fat kid, no offense to you. I'm saying I was a fat kid.
I don't know. I was too.
And I got
I
picked on a
was a
lot.
very skinny kid. I was a fat teenager.
Well, I was like an athletic fat kid, you know what I mean? Like I played sports and everything. I was strong, but I was still like a fat kid. So like the older kids would pick on me, and the only way I knew how to handle it was to fight. And I always had like good instincts for fighting for whatever reason. You know what I mean? Like it's not like I'm bragging. I never lost a lot of fights. But I mean, you always get your bell rung here and there. There's always somebody out there who gets you eventually or pops you good. But I just I wish I hadn't have done that as a kid, but it helped me throughout my life just to be able to protect myself, to be able to protect the people around me. But like the older I get, I don't feel the need to do it anymore, obviously, unless there was some dire situation, which is where a guy like yourself comes in who teaches this type of stuff. I mean, there have to be certain instances where like you're talking about the church ladies, like they must have some thought in their head where they felt like they needed to be protected in some sort of way, and they wanted you to teach them. So I mean, how does that go exactly? I mean, do you teach them to kind of like elbow somebody in the face in this situation happens? Do you kick them in the balls? Like, what do you do?
Um, you know, I certainly teach avoidance more than anything,
Hmm.
situational awareness, looking like you are not a good person to victimize. If there's two people walking down the street and one of them's paying attention to what's going on, looks confident, one of them's head is buried in their phone,
Right.
who's the one that you would victimize? Working smarter, not harder. It's the one that's not paying attention. So pay attention, look confident, avoid areas, even if you got to go a little bit out of your way. There's that hypothetical, I wouldn't want to meet you in the dark alley. Like, what are you doing in dark alleys? Why are you in the dark alley? Even if you have to go 6 blocks out of your way, don't be in the dark alley.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I absolutely do teach them to, if you do have to be physical, if you do have to physically defend yourself, do it as brutally as possible.
Yeah. I mean, get pop them good, right? I mean, if you're defending yourself truly, get them good with something, right?
Put your thumbs in their eyes,
Yeah.
put your knee in their groin, do as much damage as you can and get out of there.
Yeah.
And it's not a fight at that point. Defending yourself physically is not a fight. There's no rules to it. It's not supposed to be fair. It's survival. And if you're going to do that as brutally as you possibly can.
I mean, that's how I felt even as a kid growing up, was like I always found, and I'm not suggesting people do this. I don't necessarily, I'm not condoning everyone use violence, but sometimes you have to. You know, I would find that if you just pop somebody like hard, be the first one to pop them in the nose if they're attacking you or something. Usually you can catch somebody off guard pretty good. Now, I don't want somebody going out there and doing it and killing somebody, but I'm saying if you're in a fight, well, not necessarily a fight, but if you're in quote unquote a fight for your life with somebody, pop them good. I mean, unload on them, do what you can, just like PJ's saying. I mean, and that's probably the best chance you have. I mean, I don't know what instances you would have you ever been encountered on, have you ever had to use this in real life, I guess, like in a dire situation?
I wouldn't say a dire situation. Um, I've had to a couple of times where I was at like maybe a friend's house for their birthday or something, and you'll get people who've had a few drinks
Mhm.
then want to mess around. One of the scariest ones is I had a guy tell me, "Oh yeah, I could take you." I was a really good wrestler and I wrestled in college. And okay, whatever, you can take me. I don't have. First of all, there's a lot of guys out walking around that absolutely could. And if some guy wants to stroke his ego by going like, I heard you were, you know, a black belt at this, or I heard you were an MMA fighter, what I can I know I can take you.
Yeah.
Whatever. It doesn't hurt my ego to have you think you could take go, please. Feel like that, and you know, let it boost your ego for the night. But he had been drinking for a little while, and I was out talking to someone by a bonfire.
Mhm.
And he had had a few drinks and decided when I was out by the bonfire was a good place to try to tackle me. And so just because we were so close to the fire and this drunk idiot decided that he was going to tackle me right towards the fire, that was, I think, probably the most dire situation that I've had to use it in. Is you know, he tackled me. I had to maneuver both of us away from the fire because, you know, he's drunk and acting like a moron, but I don't want him tumbling in the bonfire either. You know, I don't want him to start himself on fire. You know. So I had to maneuver us away and choke him out really quickly because at that point it was like I kind of have to neutralize you for both our safety.
Yeah. Well, and that's what a horrible place to tackle somebody, you know, by a bonfire. Wow.
Yeah, so it's just been stuff like that. It's been stupid people trying to mess around. And, you know, when I was doing MMA, we used to have people walk in off the gym. It was a little bit rougher neighborhood. We used to have people walk in and challenge us all the time, all the time. And it was a very, very regular thing. And I knew one of these days something really bad was going to happen, but my coach was basically just like, "Hey, if you want to sign the release form, you know, go ahead. You're going to have to wear some protective equipment." But and all of those people just got humiliated.
I imagine, man. Well,
Yeah.
one, I can't even imagine someone walking in off the street and challenging. But I mean, I'm sure it happens. People think they're tough. They think they're cut out for it.
Simply, yeah, I don't know what it is about fighting, but like you wouldn't watch like even a decent college level basketball player. I wouldn't imagine watching that and going, I could take him in a game of one-on-one.
Right. Exactly.
When it comes to fighting, people go, I think I could take that guy. And like,
I don't know. Would they step in the ring with Mike Tyson in his prime, though? I mean, Mike Tyson was an animal. I I wouldn't step in now or any time throughout that guy's life. I don't care if he's 70. I'll bet he could still pop me good enough to knock me out.
yeah, but no, I mean, people just got completely humiliated, and one guy threatened to come back with a gun, and that was the last time it ever happened.
Man.
It was the same thing where I knew something bad was going to happen. This guy walked in with a group of guys and his girlfriend. I'm like, no, don't humiliate a guy in front of his girlfriend. It's not going to end well. But, you know, they have been in a couple of fights growing up or whatever. They think they're a tough guy, and everybody talks about like their mentality and they never quit. And this isn't what you think it is, though. If you want to spar with a trained fighter, it's not going to be the same as like on the playground.
Yeah, not at all.
This is a different world, and you have no idea.
Yeah. Well, you know, PJ, I hate to interrupt the conversation. We'll be coming back here soon, but we're gonna have to take a pause for a little bit of our sponsors. So I got some fine sponsors out there. So when we come back, we'll resume our conversation with my guest, PJ Agness.
Hey there, grooming gurus. We've got something wild for you today.
That's right, folks. Get ready to tame the untamed with products that redefine the beard game. Introducing the Elegant Sasquatch Grooming Company.
Elegant Sasquatch, that sounds like a contradiction, doesn't it?
Well, grooming should be an adventure, my friend, and with these products, you'll embark on a journey to the grooming wilderness.
So, what makes the Elegant Sasquatch so unique?
It's all about taking your beard from beastly to beautifully wild. Picture this: you wake up and your beard looks like it just got back from a spa day. That's the magic of their high end beard balms.
Spa day for the beard? Sign me up. And let's not forget their beard butters and oils. It's like giving your beard a tropical vacation. I'm talking about a beach party for your facial hair.
A beach party for the beard. This company's got the best marketing ever.
Oh, but we're not done yet, folks. The Elegant Sasquatch Grooming Company also has beard washes that make shower time a majestic experience.
Showering with Sasquatch, that sounds like a reality show.
It does, but seriously, listeners, if you want to sophisticate your outer beast, head over to elegantsasquatchco.etsy.com and use the code SUPERSHOW at checkout for an exclusive discount of 20% off.
You can also find them on Facebook and Instagram. Check them out, like them, and while you're at it, tell them the Super Show sent you.
All right, we took a little break there. I want to thank our sponsors once again, and if there's any other sponsors out there that want to come on, all aboard, everybody. I'll take on as much sponsorship as possible. So we're back with the show. We've got Pj Agness here. He's a self-defense guy. He's an author on self-defense and espionage, the art of. And now this is the portion of the show where it seems like everybody wants to get weird with me. So with that being said, PJ, I think it's time to get weird together here. Let's talk a little. You said you have something prepared for me. I'm dying to hear what it is. I'm kind of a spooky guy. I'll talk about anything paranormal, aliens, anything. Fire away, man. What do you got?
Well, one of the things I write about and teach about is espionage, and like we spoke about earlier, I teach this espionage for self-defense. Really, I teach it so everybody can benefit in their everyday lives. So I'm not teaching necessarily professional spies all the time.
Right.
Just the everyday person, how to utilize this espionage tradecraft in their everyday life. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to start with something really weird, supernatural.
Okay.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to break it down for your listeners, and they're going to have some real practical takeaways.
All right.
What do you know about remote viewing?
The most I know about it is from like Art Bell. I was a huge Art Bell fan. Coast to Coast AM. Some with George Norrie, they would have remote viewers on. They would talk about government things that were happening with remote viewing. And that's really the gist of all I know.
All right, so it's psychic spying. So we're going to talk a little bit about psychic spying.
Okay.
And again, I am going to make it very, very practical for your listeners. Now, I first want to say that, like, I'm a Christian. I don't get into all sorts of like new age or like occult stuff. So it's nothing too freaky for me. But we both know, I'm sure you know this, that we talk about like five senses, but human beings have more than five senses. It's
Absolutely.
scientifically proven, right? So both the KGB and the CIA were involved in this psychic spying. They dumped money into it. They had some successes with it, some documented successes with it. So psychic spying was a thing. Remote viewing basically just means that you view something not physically accessible to you.
Okay.
So there was this program, and supposedly, and I have it on some pretty trustworthy authority, because since I have been involved in this world, I never, the only intelligence gathering I have done is privately. But I've gotten to know some people who are agency types. I've gotten to know some people who have been very deep in government espionage, government intelligence work. You know, and I've gotten to have friends in the intelligence community, or at least people who were in that community. And I have it on good authority, people that I trust, that some of this remote viewing was very successful. But it wasn't just like you close your eyes and you see something in your mind. It was also based on intuition and feeling and impressions. And there's a couple things that I can really tell your audience as far as practical advice. Our intuition, trusting our gut, is probably the most important thing that we can do for self-defense. I mean, no animal in nature would ever ignore their intuition, but we do it all the time. And we get ourselves in some bad situation, we get ourselves ripped off, we get ourselves scammed because we've ignored our intuition. Something doesn't feel right, but we've rationalized it away in our brains. I've done it before. I'm sure you've done it before, right?
I do it all the time, but I'm I'm also a serial overthinker. So I would say that I personally am extremely aware of my surroundings, and I unfortunately though will put every scenario through my head to try to prevent whatever's going on. You know, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, that's what I personally do.
So, I mean, you can learn to be more intuitive. You can learn to trust your gut a lot more, and I wouldn't say shut off your brain, but focus your brain a little bit more.
Yeah,
Go, okay, I don't feel good about this situation. Why don't I feel good about this situation?
absolutely.
And not explain it away and not rationalize it away, but trust it and then ask yourself, I'm feeling this way. There's a reason I'm feeling this way. What's that reason? And so we can all be more, we can all trust our sense of intuition more than we do. The other thing that is part of this is they developed something called hemisync for these remote viewers. What hemisync is you get into isolation, you got to get some headphones, and there's these frequencies that balance the hemispheres of your brain. And they talk a lot about these kind of out-of-body experiences and being able to see outside yourself when you balance the hemispheres in your brain. And this is something that you can actually do and I can actually do. We'd have to get some really good equipment to do it. And so it's not accessible to everybody. But we can enter a state very much like that. So you and I, it's later at night. We are both going to be going to sleep sometime in the near future, right?
Yeah.
Do you ever have that where you lay down and you're not quite asleep, but you're sort of hazy and you're sort of entering that state where you're not quite asleep, you're not quite awake? You know what I'm talking about?
I definitely have that, and I also get a lot of sleep paralysis, which is kind of
Oh,
close to that area, and that's fair. That's terrifying in itself for
I
some
have
people.
sleep paralysis. We can talk forever about that too.
Oh
But
yeah.
what I wanted to, and I'm going to teach you something that can help you with your sleep paralysis
Okay.
now. So that state of in between awake and asleep, that's called hypnagogia.
Hmm.
You can sort of hypnotize yourself in hypnagogia. There's been things that I've been kind of nervous about that I've sort of told myself, there's no reason to be nervous about this. I'm not going to be nervous about this. I'm going to be relaxed about this. I'm going to be relaxed about this. What you can do, and what everybody listening can do, is they can do the exact same thing when they go into hypnagogia. You can kind of hypnotize yourself, or you can envision something. You can, see yourself overcoming some obstacle. Positive visualization, positive self-talk is so good in that hypnagogia state. Because it kind of is between your subconscious and conscious mind. What you could do is you could talk yourself into lucid dreaming. I had sleep paralysis and then I learned how to lucid dream. And now I don't really have it anymore. And lucid dreaming is basically where you can control your dreaming. Once you realize that you are dreaming, you can start to control it.
Yeah.
So if you can, if you are anything like me, when you are in that sleep paralysis, you start to panic. Your adrenaline starts to take over.
Absolutely.
It's very fear-inducing. I mean, there were years that what I would do is I would set my alarm for the middle of the night to wake myself up because I knew that I was going to be in that place and it was going to be terrifying and I was going to want to wake up. But then I learned about this stuff and I started to relax and I started to go, okay, I'm dreaming. What do I want to dream about? I had a lot of like levitating when I was in that sleep paralysis state.
Yeah.
Because I would see myself levitating and it would scare me. And then I would go, okay, I'm dreaming. What do I want to do? I'm levitating. Let's levitate out of the house. Let's levitate over the rooftops. Let's levitate over the neighborhood. Let's look at nature. And once I started doing that and just started being calm and being able to control that, just stopped happening.
Wasn't that a fine line between that and astral projection? Do you think that you could have possibly been astral projecting to another place or another plane? Do you think that's possible?
I wouldn't rule it out.
Yeah. Because I mean, some of these people who talk about this stuff, I mean, they tell very vivid tales. I'm like, it's like an outer body experience. Like literally, like they levitate above their bodies. They can see that their house they can leave, they can go wherever they want. And I find it hard to believe that I say this a lot on my show to people. I believe everything people tell me unless they give me a reason to not believe them. You know what I mean? Like, I'm
Mhm.
not saying that I'm gullible, like I'll believe anything, but I'm saying like not everybody is full of crap. You know what I'm saying? Like
Well,
people are better than we give them credit for. We like to stick in the negative and think everybody's, everyone's lying, everyone's got an angle, but I don't think so. I think that what you're saying, man, you've hit so many points to this. I would love to have you back on the show just to talk about more stuff, man, because it seems like we have a similar point of views on some of this stuff.
yeah. But I wanted to get at one particular thing that I
Yeah.
specifically for your audience. So, the CIA, when they did this Project Stargate, found something called patterning, right? Or they called it patterning, and they talked a lot about what you would say is like manifesting reality and whatever. Which I don't know if you know much about the history of the CIA. I'm almost certain you do. But I wouldn't want to live in a world where they could manifest reality.
Right.
Like, they've done some horrendous things and still do some horrendous things. But when we think about patterning, what it is, it's a pattern of what you tell yourself, right? So when you get into when when I graduated high school, not only obese but very depressed. And positive self-talk has been a huge, huge thing for me in my life. So that patterning, what a lot of people would call manifesting, what do people that really believe in this like manifesting thing do? They constantly say the same thing over and over to themselves. I'm going to be successful. I'm I'm going to come into money. It's going to be my day. It's going to be my year. And there a lot of I don't believe in this like you speak it into the universe and then it comes true. But what you're doing is you're telling yourself these things over and over and over, and you're starting to believe these things. Well, as human beings, we have a huge confirmation bias. And I'm sure you know what that is. That's you look for evidence of things that you already believe.
Right.
You know, if you believe in all these liberal ideas, you look for things that reinforce that. Or if you believe in all these conservative ideals, you look for things that reinforce the world is the way that I think it is, right? So you're constantly telling yourself these things, and then your brain is looking to confirm them. So if I walk out of the house in the morning and I go, you know, I'm a nice person, people like me, people like me, people like me. Then what do? I start to act in a way that draws people towards me, and then my brain is looking for evidence of people liking me, right? So I might tune out anything to the contrary. So I start to believe it, I start to reinforce it, I start to act that way, and that becomes reality.
Excuse me.
So positive self-talk, that's what I would really like to preach to your audience. Treat yourself nicely, speak to yourself nicely, and you're going to start to see that happen in your life. You can rewrite reality just by the
I believe it
messages.
100%, man. You said you suffered from depression, you suffered from obesity. The power of positivity, it sounds so cliche to people because we get so stuck in the negative. But I can tell you from my personal experience, I almost died 3 years ago with heart issues, everything. I decided to make the best of it from then on out. You know what I mean? I decided to appreciate every day, appreciate and start thinking positive about things and say, and I do get sucked in depression sometimes. I don't have any problem sharing that. But I will say the power of positivity is a major thing that has helped me along the way. So I really am appreciative to you to share that message with the audience on what you're saying, because it's huge, man. It's a major part of life that most of us should learn, but most of us never do.
Yeah, and it's not just thinking positive. When you think positively, it influences your actions, You
Right.
can't just think positively about being in good shape. You need to take some action too.
Yeah.
But when you start to think positively, it influence your thoughts influence your actions influence your beliefs become who you are.
Absolutely. And look at what you've done. I mean, you went from that probably a certain state of mind to achieving all the stuff you've achieved. Now you've been an author, you've written books, you've written material, you've trained people, you've learned things that you enjoy. So man, I applaud you for that, and I applaud you for the message.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we are running down on time on this show. Like I said, my invitation is open to you. You're welcome to come back to the show. I already enjoy you as a guest. I hope you've enjoyed some of your time on the show. Hopefully, we'll have some more down the line. But I'm going to give you an opportunity now if you'd like to promote anything, be it your books, website, anything. Please feel free to do so.
You can find all of my stuff just by typing in my name into Google. PJ, so the initials, the little dots in the middle. And then my last name is Agness, Agness. You can find classes that I teach on Udemy. You can find my books on Amazon.com. There are physical versions and there are Kindle versions. And then you can find me on social media. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I run an intelligence community on locals.com. I make myself very, very easy to find.
Absolutely. Well, you're accessible. You're a great conversationalist, and you're an interesting guy. You chose an interesting path, and I appreciate you being part of my journey as a podcaster and as a personality in creating this type of content. I so appreciate a guy like yourself willing to come on the show. So thank you so much for your time, and hopefully I will talk to you again soon.
I'd love
Yeah.
to do it again.
Let's schedule something. I've got some shows coming up. I've got some big things where I'm going to be on some radio, like real radio, all that type of stuff. And I'm definitely looking for guests. So I would love to have you on again, my friend.
All right, sounds good. You know where
Awesome.
to get over.
Well, thank you very much, and you have a great night, sir.
You too.